So let's make a strong determination to wake up, to be of the very best effective benefit to everyone. Because we can't really do that until we wake up. And let's set our motivation to examine together tonight the qualities of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and this concept of refuge. And let's look at those qualities very closely and check out their reliability. And let's set our motivation to wholeheartedly trust them if we find them to be reliable, and to follow their guidance throughout all of our lives, and to help one another along the way to do this over and over till we ourselves develop all those qualities. And along the way, let's generate this joy and gratitude that we have this amazing opportunity to study this way together, to consider things like refuge, and last week looking at death. And we have all this thanks to the kindness of our teachers, their teachers, and their teachers back all the way to Shakyamuni Buddha, who've given us these wonderful guidelines that are very practical and yet very vast. So let's touch on that gratitude in our hearts. So Venerable Chitran is still in India, and we in the community are carrying on learning together. And the topic tonight is refuge and the qualities of the three jewels. I want to tell you what I relied on to study for this, and as we were in the silence tonight, I actually realized that probably one of the things I'm relying on the very most is having taken refuge. And I was sitting here thinking that was in 1999, and so that's been 12 years, and that's been a very good thing. And as we go along talking about the concepts, I'll try and share a little bit too about what kind of difference that's made to me. But for you, also you who have taken refuge, either who are in the room or listening, we'll pause some moments to think about, the effect that has had on your life. And if you haven't done that, this will be a wonderful time to be able to explore with us why you might want to think about doing that. So some of the things I relied on, the experiences since then. Also reading the commentary by Venerable Chitran in the Lam Rim. And she, back in, I don't know when it was, gave this wonderful set of classes at DFF on refuge, helping a class get prepared to take refuge. And we actually have a booklet on that, and you can contact us through email at the office, and we can send it to you online. It's just a wonderful overview of some of what we'll be talking about tonight, but in her inimitable way. Also, we just got in the mail here a gift of this beautiful book, From Here to Enlightenment by the Dalai Lama. So I read some parts on there in Refuge, and they're so beautiful. I'm going to actually read some of them because, of course, he says it in a way that's much better than me. Flying away trying to understand. and looked again at the very reliable Geshe Sopa's commentary on the Lamrim, his Steps on the Path to Enlightenment, the section on refuge. And then really, you know, the thing that I rely on the most about refuge is this wonderful book, which I think I hold up almost every time that I give a talk, but it's because if you don't have this book, it would be really wonderful to get it. It's the first prayer book that Venerable Chitran put together. It's called Pearl of Wisdom, Buddha's Prayers and Practices, Book 1. And there is a lot on refuge in this prayer, in this book. And if you do have this book, I don't know, I'm appreciating it all over brand new. I've had this book for a long, long time, but we did a revision, and there are so many beautiful prayers, the ones we do at the Abbey after lunch and before lunch, and how to set up your mind when you wake up in the morning, when you're walking somewhere, where you're going to sleep. It's just absolutely amazing, this book is. And then I took a glance at the FPMT course of teachings on refuge, some of which we've connected into our SAFE program, our Sravasti Abbey Friends Education program. So that was very fun too, watching all of that, and I hope I've put this together in a way that'll help us all. So Geshe Sopa, looking at refuge, says what we're focusing on here is how do we create the means to achieve happiness in this life and future lives. That's what we're looking at when we're looking at refuge. How are we going to create the way, the means to get to this happiness, particularly in future lives? But we know as Buddhists and that if we start looking at the happiness of future lives and do the things that lead there, we end up being happy in this life. It's kind of a sideshow. So it's kind of nice because there's something about not focusing so much on I gotta be happy right now, and looking at, you know, what about the next time round? And he turns very quickly. There's a pretty much precise outline how each of the teachers do this. From the traditional teachings, we look at the causes of refuge, and those are really why. It's really why do we take it? So I want to go back to. Well, I gave a BBC a little while ago, and I started by looking at the definition of refuge in our own dictionary. And it's protection, it's shelter, it's sanctuary. And I love this phrase, it's help in times of trouble. So the root of the word comes from Latin fugere, F-U-G-E-R-E, and it means to flee from or to run away from. So you think of refugees even in the common sense, you know, someone being a refugee from war and crossing over into another country. So what are we refugees from? What are we fleeing from? And in short, every one of the texts points to that we're fleeing from our own suffering mind. There's not some other place that we're going to move across a border, or we're going to get to a nice, green pasture with golden tamaracks, which is what's happening right now from our hillside. But really, we're fleeing from our own suffering mind. And not so much fleeing as actually learning how to deal with it so that we can transform it. So we take refuge as a remedy to certain death, absolutely certain. And if you want to be shaken up a bit about that, please listen to the teachings 1 week ago by Venerable Samten. I think after that, those of us who were here and those of us who heard, usually for me, these things on death last maybe a half hour I'm kind of shaken up if it's a really powerful thing I listen to, but I was shaken up for the whole night and part of the next day, and in the good way, shaken up, like getting it that I'm gonna die. Everyone in this room's gonna die. Everyone listening's gonna die. It's a for sure. That's not even the question. Also, none of us know when, and none of us know with certainty where we're going, where this consciousness is going to show up next. So this is the cause of refuge. The cause of this death is the suffering of our own mind, because it grabs onto another body and then we go around again. That's what causes the death. And so this is what we're aiming to take refuge for. There's an image about this death stuff that sticks in my mind. I'm sure it comes out of a text, but I only know it through Venerable Chitran. It's that we have taken bodies so much that we could pile all of our dry bones up and they would be higher than any mountain you can think of. So in this world, it's Mount Everest. You know, in the traditional Buddhist world, it's Mount Meru. But just think about that. And they're not all human bones, by the way. You know, we have certainly taken other forms from beginningless time. So we could be looking at this pile of bones that we've been and see our little mouse bodies and our little, you know, times we were giraffes and humans, but it's enormous. So this is what we are needing refuge from. The lower realms are very real to the mind, Geshe Sopa talks about. And even if, you know, we think about, oh, I don't know if they're a real place, like this real place. And then we have to investigate, well, how real is this place? You know, in this room, if we could jump into one another's minds, we might be a little shocked about what this room appears like, because everything arises in the mind. But these lower realms that we are we don't want to be born into again are very real to the mind, just as real as our current situation, which feels incredibly real. I think I'm right here and I'm individual from you, and I'm talking about the Dharma, and you know, Katya's over there, you know, working the computer, and it all seems quite real. These lower realms that we become our causes of refuge, this need to escape this cyclic existence, you think about it, you know, just a nanosecond. Think of a time when you were extremely angry, just like so pissed off, excuse my French, but and it's not French, but just think about that. You know, what did that feel like? It's like a burning or a coldness. You can be in the cold hell realms. I'm done with them. Chop off. You know, they can die. I often do more cold anger than hot. But either way, we get so fearful, so angry that we live in and create that hell realm. Think of wars. Think of living in a war zone. How did it get created? Fear and anger. That's all that created that. Someone gets very fearful of someone else. Someone gets very angry at someone else. Perhaps it's also tied to attachment. We want that, you know, and you're not giving it. And off we go. And an actual war comes from this mind. So this is what we are, this mind, this suffering becomes this cause for taking refuge. We don't want to die with these kinds of minds, of course, and our consciousness, if we do die with those kinds of minds, absolutely overpowered and takes a form based on a hell realm, or it takes a form based on a hungry ghost. I've got to have, got to have, got to have. This is what we're looking at. I'm going to spend a little bit of time more on this causes of refuge, because I don't know, it was what captured me almost as much or more than the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, which we're going to get to. But I want to spend a little time on it, because what it did was, as I kept looking at it, was it really, I think it really deepens our refuge when we really get a sense that we're in danger. we're in danger. You know, we think of, oh, those refugees, you know, from Somalia going across the border, or, you know, the refugees from New York, in a way, you know, having to evacuate and move away from the shore from the recent hurricane. I think of everybody else, you know, those other people as refugees. I don't really see the danger I'm in. And until we really see it, then our refuge is not so deep. So I was thinking about these states of mind and thinking, well, I'm taking refuge from the suffering in my mind. What's the cause of the suffering in my mind? Well, we're always pointing at this culprit, the self-centered thought, the grasping at a self, the self-centered attitude that arises out of that. And I used to teach these workshops in diversity about the oppressor inside, the internal oppressor and the internal, like, you know, healthy part of ourselves, but how we've internalized attitudes that are really prejudicial and biased and oppressive. And I started seeing this self-centered attitude as an internal oppressor. And it was very helpful for me to label it that way. Oh, this is like an internal oppressor that I basically put up with. And this is what puts us in danger. We follow its directions. And every time it leads to suffering. So this self-centered attitude is like a colonizer that has moved in on us. Mm-hmm. It is not us, but you can think also of a colonizer, which is a phrase I borrow from Thich Nhat Hanh. One time I was reading a book, he was talking about being careful what you let in your mind, and he used this phrase, be careful what you let colonize your mind. And it was like, that really got me being very careful about movies I went to. It was like, do I want this coming in? Maybe not. This may be a set of thoughts someone else put together, but I'm not that interested in watching this violence, you know, or this intense sexual attachment. So we want to be addressing this self-centered attitude as an oppressor, as a colonizer who occupies us, harms us, and then leads us into constant suffering, harming others. All of these kind of thoughts lead us to start looking around. Wow, I'm in danger. Oh, this bug is in danger, and from the kitty cat. So Donnie just gave it refuge. This is, I think, just helpful to keep thinking about, I'm in danger, I need to seek refuge. I need it. It's not someone else, it's me. Right here, right now. And I'm so thick in my ignorance, I can't see it. I'm dancing on the edge of a cliff, and I think that it's a big field, and I'm wrong about it. So just pulling those images into our minds over and over. Where are we really at? What's actually going on? Here at the Abbey, we get constant prayer requests for people who've died and gotten very, very sick at every age. I mean, from, you know, pre-birth, birth, all the way through, you know, to very old. So this can help wake us up anytime, anytime. The teachings all set out two motivations for refuge. This is mostly based on Geshe Sopa. First, this danger of suffering rebirths in samsara. This danger that we're just going to keep going round and round and round and round. Maybe we'll make it to a little bit higher rebirth. The top of samsara feels great. And boom, you're back down and round and round and round, piling up those bones. So that's the first motivation. The second one we'll spend some more time on in a little bit, which is this confidence, which can be interpreted as reasoned faith in the three jewels. So His Holiness, it's so wonderful how he has brought this phrase forth so clearly. We proceed on faith, but it is faith based on reason. We never use blind faith. In Buddhism, we are encouraged, in fact, we are told by the Buddha, test everything, test everything. If it doesn't work in your life, don't believe it. If it works in your life, use it and do it. And then, of course, we add to these two motivations as Mahayana practitioners to avoid this suffering, escape this suffering, understand it, and go past it, and to have this reasoned faith in order to end suffering for all beings, in order to benefit them all, not just for ourselves. So if you just pick up a Buddhist prayer book in any of the lineages, you're going to find almost always we start with refuge. Namo Guru Bhya, Namo Buddha Ya. And we start our mornings with that. We're encouraged by Venerable, one of the best practices that we're all trying to cultivate. And we encourage you too, is the moment you come to consciousness in your bed, don't wait till you get out of bed. Take refuge immediately. The minute you're out of that dream, the minute you're waking up, even in total confusion, just take refuge, take refuge. And just say the words, and it starts soothing and bringing us to mind right away where we want to be, the direction we want to go in. So refuge permeates our practice. Why? Because it makes clear the spiritual direction. It's the roadmap. It's like, oh, I know where I'm going. I come up out of sleep. I may be in a really crazy dream, which is quite often I can't figure out. My most recent one was trying to save a cat from drowning. I think I was channeling some things from the East Coast. So there's a lot of water. And but as soon as I come out of that dream, I just take refuge, just take refuge, and then start purifying anything you can remember in the dream that you don't feel good about. Let's see. Okay, now this says to read this prayer by Venerable. Okay, so this makes clear our spiritual direction, what we'll rely on. And until now, we have taken refuge in many, many things. This is not a new concept to us. Think about the things you take refuge in. One of the things I was taking refuge in while we were being quiet before this teaching was I was thinking, just like I have to stay awake till till about 8:45, and then I can go to sleep. And then I thought, there you are, you're taking refuge in this future sleep time. It's what we rely on, what we soothe ourselves with, what we comfort ourselves with, where our minds go. A lot of us do it in food, friends. So I'm going to, throughout this talk, read some of the pieces out of this it's actually a whole teaching prayer that Venerable wrote, Venerable Children, on renewing refuge and precepts, and we do it twice a month on the days that we take precepts. While the monastics do sojang, the lay people read this wonderful prayer. So this paragraph says it so well, so I'll just read it. From beginningless time until the present, in my attempt to find happiness. This is what we want. This is our most common thing with one another. We're looking for happiness. I have been taking refuge, but the things I have relied upon have not been able to bring the lasting state of peace and joy that I seek. Until now, I've taken refuge in material possessions. Think if you've done that. Yes, your new car, your new apartment, your new clothes, new whatever, new iPad, iPod. I have taken refuge in money, yes, in status, in reputation, in approval, in praise, in food, in sex, in music, and a myriad of other things. So we've done this. This is what we generally take refuge in, and we're going to look in a little while. How reliable are these things? Although they've given me some temporal pleasure, they lack the ability to bring me lasting happiness because they themselves are transient and do not last long. It's their very nature. They're disappearing as they're arising. It's simultaneously built in. As we got this computer chip right inside here, we can't get it out, and it's got a death date on it, and it's going. My attachment to these things has in fact made me more dissatisfied, more anxious, more confused, more frustrated, and fearful. And if you look at that and think about it, it's true. It's fine to have a really wonderful, good relationship, but you start, the minute attachment comes in there, and it's very hard for us to have these without attachment, we start getting fearful and anxious. What do I have to do to keep this? What's going to happen when it's ending? Oh, is it ending now? Maybe I want to end it, and on we go. Okay. So that's where Venerable points out how we've done this many times all throughout, and you'll notice she says from beginningless time up to now. And we've done all this under the influence of our ignorance, afflictions, and karma. There's a wonderful sutra quote that says, "I, who am subject to birth, aging, sickness, death, and suffering, take refuge in that which is subject to birth, aging, sickness, death, and suffering." Why do we do this? This is my nature, and I'm trying to take refuge in this other one who is just suffering also, or this thing that's suffering. This is what we do. So we end up looking, as we look at refuge, at the First Noble Truth very deeply. What is suffering? What is it, and how do I get involved in it? Actually, the first two Noble Truths, suffering and the cause of it. So we won't go into that so much tonight, but this is this is how we end up needing and seeing that we have to move for refuge. And Geshe Sopa has a nice quote. It's like a child running to the mother or father from what is fearful or difficult. Isn't that nice? That there's a place to run. Once we see all this suffering, there's a place to run. So let's take one last look at this suffering, and I always love this. I had this chance to hear Geshe Sopa talk about renunciation one time, and he talked about why do it. It's this renunciation is very related to this refuge, renouncing this suffering in our minds. And he just sat down and he just said in his big voice, well, you get hungry. So you eat, and you eat, and you eat, and you eat. And then your stomach hurts, so you stop. And then you get hungry, so you eat. And he did this about walking and eating. And by the time he got through with it, I could see this glimmer of we're never outside of the suffering. The minute the suffering of hunger ends, the suffering of being too full is starting. And the minute the fullness, and you start digesting, the suffering of hunger is starting. And it was like, oh my gosh, it's relentless. And I think something about his voice and his presence, and of course his realization, you could see the relentlessness of it. It was like, wow. Okay. So we tried these over and over again. The PMT site asked this question. Well, look back at everything you've tried. Look back at every single thing you've tried. Has any of those ended your suffering? You've tried a lot of things just in this life. Has any one of them ended your suffering? It could give temporary relief, but ended the basic suffering? No. And if you combine them all together, will that end your suffering? So our ignorance is this disease, and it's the base for all other diseases and all suffering. And based on it, we follow this kind of thinking around. I don't even know if we can call it thinking. We can't call it thinking. We follow this delusions around, these delusions. Okay, so let's look back again at these two motivations for refuge, this fear and this faith. So let's look again a little deeper at this fear. A little while ago, here at the Abbey, there's so many things you can try out. It's wonderful because you're you're amongst, you're in this whole milieu of people all trying out Dharma things and encouraging each other, and a teacher teaching. And so I got really sick of being scared. I just got very sick of it. It was like something came to my mind that was like this: I'm done with fear. I am so done with fear. I don't even care what happens anymore. I am not going to be afraid again. And it's been quite a good thing, because I tend to have a lot of, in the past, tended to have quite a bit of chronic anxiety, And it was just like, well, I'm done with that. I'm just done with it. And so that was really, I've noticed a kind of growing in confidence from that kind of decision almost, that this is an affliction I'm always going to oppose, and I'm going to see it for what it is, and I'm going to just not entertain it anymore. Not that it won't come up. But then I started doing this study for this, and here they're talking about fear. So I was like, oh, now I have to think about it with a different lens on. So I figured out that there's this ignorant fear. That's the one I'm saying I'm done with, that I am finished. It's fear based on ignorance. I'm calling it dumb fear. It's completely tangled up with the self-centered attitude. The self-centered attitude is throwing up topics, shall we say. Let's be afraid that the lunch won't be any good. Let's be afraid the talk won't be any good. Let's be afraid that people won't like you when it's done. Let's be afraid you're getting sick. It's just constant. It's just so crazy. And every one of these fears is tied to 8 worldly concerns, because it's all about me, my praise for me, reputation for me, my gain, my loss, my comfort. Oh yeah, my comfort, that's one of my favorite ones. And fear of losing what's already disappearing, I mean, my biggest fear right now, if I ever get going on it, is losing the Abbey, losing venerable children. So that's where, it's like another level of attachment. But already disappearing. Venerable said it one day when something like we hadn't started Chenrezig, and she said, Chenrezig Hall's already going. And it was like, wow, it is. So Chenrezig Hall that's going up out there, it's already disappearing, it's already disintegrating. It's just a difference in time. So that's the ignorant fear. We're trying to grasp at that and not wanting that, and just, making ourselves very, very actually even ill. But there is fear based on wisdom, and that's the fear that we're looking at here with Refuge. It's this fear of I'm dancing on the edge of a cliff, and I need to see that, I need to know that. My death is real. I need to know that. It's understanding the karma and the effects of karma. It's understanding that I'm creating that with my body, speech, and mind, and every single piece of it's going to come back around. So constantly turning towards more positive in order to create that those good outcomes. And of course, it almost goes without saying, but I'm going to say it. We have to straighten up our ethics and practice strong ethics based on this deep understanding of karma. So we start seeing how every topic in the Dharma leads us back to every other topic. You start with refuge, you're back to suffering, then you're to karma. They're all just completely woven together, which is one of the beauties of them. Venerable Chitran always asks us, or puts before us, if we really understood karma, really, 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 would we be acting and thinking the way we are? I was watching my judging mind recently, just how much I judge people as they walk in a room, or if I'm feeling kind of irritated, just in general. And someone does something and how harsh it is. And I was thinking, even that thought, it's only thoughts. I'm not, saying anything to anyone, although I'm sure people are feeling things. But do I want that coming back around at me? No, I hate it when I think someone's judging me, even if they're being quiet and they're not showing anything. If I feel like they are, I hate it. So I don't even want that going back around, much less some of the actions I've done. So this taking refuge is based on this realistic fear, and I'm thinking, I was looking up some synonyms. I like the word dread. It's really a dread of what could happen if I continue on this automatic pilot and I don't start opposing some of these afflictions that arise. It's a dread, a true dread of what can happen. And what rises then is a very intelligent kind of vigilance, an intelligent kind of caution towards our situation. And then I was thinking, you know what, it's really kind of odd. Although our minds are so odd under the influences that they're under, it seems like we don't fear what's really dangerous. And we waste time fearing things that are just useless. And I was just sitting there with that going, oh my gosh, I've been so afraid of things that never happened, didn't matter. I've spent hours, my test, my exam, my law degree, my this, my that, my son won't love me, all kinds of things that never happened. Or if they did, it wasn't anything I couldn't fix. I haven't spent very much fear of, I'm going to die. And I don't really know all the things I've done. And I certainly haven't purified them all. So, you know, we've really got this backwards. So, again, we come to this sense of karma and the need for ethics, and that can lead us to precepts. And these are all topics for future talks. And I think next week, Venerable Tarpa is going to be talking about karma. Yeah, so stay tuned for that. Okay, now my notes tell me to look at page 84. So continuing on with Venerable Chitran's wording here about this, you know, the things we've taken refuge in that haven't worked, seeing the faults of expecting more from these things than they can give me. We don't even realize their true nature. We're just running after them. They can't even give what we're running after. I now turn for refuge to a reliable source that will never disappoint me, the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. I take refuge in the Buddhas. Now we're going to start looking at these qualities, the ones who have done what in the depth of my heart I aspire to do. So what have the Buddhas done? Purified their minds of all defilements and brought to fulfillment all their positive qualities. Just imagine that. Take one positive quality, generosity, one thing. Imagine bringing it to complete fulfillment. Do you ever have a time that you just gave something to someone and it felt so good, it was so spontaneous, and it was so free? Just take that and imagine that mind being with you constantly. You would be so blissed on just that one generosity. That's just one quality. It was like, wow, that's what we're talking about here. I say these words, but I don't penetrate into them so much as I have had the opportunity to studying this. I take refuge in the Dharma, which is the cessation of all undesirable experiences. No more undesirable experiences. Unbelievable. And the causes and the path leading to that state of peace. That's what the Dharma does. The causes and the path and the cessation. And I take refuge in the Sangha, those who have directly realized reality and who want to help me do the same. So we're going to look a little closer at each of these three. Okay. His Holiness says, he's so common sense and brilliant. If there's a threat, seek refuge. And there's a threat. And he talks about our levels of refuge. The highest is Mahayana. That's not to be caught in nirvana or samsara. To seek Buddhahood. And we'll have the Buddha's Dharmakaya and form bodies for the benefit of all beings. He calls this a comprehensive refuge. The Mahayana refuge, a comprehensive refuge. I like that phrase. Another level is to protect from suffering from the all-pervasive conditioning of being caught over and over in this cyclic existence. So we go to the three jewels. This is the Arhat's refuge. And this other level is to avoid the lower realms, to avoid the realms of hungry ghosts, animals, and hell realm beings. but you're still going to be in this cyclic existence. You just get to be a human and God. I don't know how that can possibly work. It seems like you'd still create things or you fall to them, but I guess there's some way to do this other level. All of these are steps forward, so it's good to have any one of these kind of aspirations, but of course we are trying for this Mahayana level. Why? Because we have all these mother sentient beings around us and we can't ignore them. They've given us everything, our bodies, paper, ideas, opportunities, friends. I mean, I don't know how to go forward and not bring them or try. So then Venerable's saying here, oh, I did that part. Okay, His Holiness the Dalai Lama shaking us up with this again. He said, we are so close to our next life. We are so very close to our next life. How close? One breath away. When that breath ceases, our next life is right there in front of us. That's his quote. When the breath ceases, your next life, right there in front of you. Who knows, next breath or next life. Okay. So what to do? So let's be looking a little deeper at this Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha to check out their reliability, because we have to get refuge somewhere. Okay, Lama Yeshe says, Buddha, what's a Buddha? Buddha's the totally open mind, the state beyond confusion. What's the Dharma? The path of wisdom, leading to that state of the totally open mind beyond confusion. And the Sangha consists of those who are endowed with wisdom, who can help us along the way. It's our own lifelong dissatisfaction that impels us to take refuge in the three jewels. We realize that clinging to daydreams and physical possessions has never given us lasting joy. So the Buddha's qualities. The FPMT course, here's the actual quote. What's perfect? What's unbetrayed? The pure Buddha mind. We can completely rely on it. This enlightened mind is omniscient, it's all-knowing, and makes no mistakes. Now this part's not a quote, but just thinking about this quote, I thought, this is very difficult for us to have faith that such a state exists. We have never known anything near this. You know, a state in which we are blissed and there are no mistakes and no suffering. This is very, very hard for us to have faith that it exists. So, what do we do about that? In a certain way, this to me ties into why we see our gurus as the Buddha, why we see our teachers. Because we can look at their good qualities, and they're here right now. We can see them very present. Oh, His Holiness the Dalai Lama walks in a room, and Lord Lama Zopa, and people are affected deeply. People who've never studied Buddhism, ourselves, any of you. Venerable Chidren walks in a room, and there's a kind of a calm and I want to call it a sensibility that comes in, a saneness that arrives. So this is how we can say, even though I can barely believe this exists, and I am striving for this faith, I can have faith in what I've experienced myself, following the path, studying, meditating, practicing. I can have faith in the improvements I've made, and I can have faith in what I see in my teachers. Buddhists have completed the entire path to full awakening. They have infinite patience, no end to it. Never get impatient. Wow, I would like that. I'd like that coming at me too. Generosity, ethics, joyous effort, wisdom, concentration, every one of these completely perfected. And they'll never give up on us. And this I use as a model, both His Holiness as he goes through this situation with China and Tibet. He doesn't give up. He doesn't say, I throw up my hands, let's go to war against China, or and they don't have an army, but even then he doesn't throw up his hands and say, I don't know what to do, just whatever. He never gives up. And I think how long Venerable Chitran has patiently taken. I've been listening to her for 18 years, I think, and patiently saying, even to today, the same things over and over. And I'm still looking at her, maybe a little glimmer in my eyes more, but at times going, and she just keeps going, because she's never going to give up and walk away. Buddhas guide, inspire, and teach us, but they can't make us do anything. This is the place where we have this freedom. They're omniscient, but not omnipotent, like we used to learn God was. We have our own karma, our own choices. So I think I'm going to skip this. Well, I'll just mention it very quickly because of time. Buddhas, when we reach that state, we can have these amazing bodies that Buddhas have. The Dharmakaya, which is this wisdom perfected, this vast, peaceful mind, a deep awareness that encompasses everything. The Sambhogakaya, the subtle forms the Buddha takes to teach high bodhisattvas in Pure Lands. We can do all of these. There's no I can only be this today. The Nirmanakaya body, which is the material form bodies, which are emanations. Many of us consider our teachers to be that, His Holiness to be an emanation of the Buddha and the earth. But the teachings also say these Nirmanakaya forms can be anything that's needed in the moment. A rescue animal that pulls someone out of a flood, and then they say, oh, that dog was here and disappeared, I don't know where he went to. This can also be an emanation body. His Holiness the Dalai Lama, talking about the meaning of the Buddha, says this. I really love this. It's a little piece in this book, and it's called Emptiness and Refuge, the piece. He says, for example, when we say, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Sanskrit term Buddha has two different senses. It can mean cleansing away faults or pollutants, but it also suggests flourishing, unfolding like the blossoming of lotus petals. In the Tibetan, these two aspects of this clearing away and blossoming are combined, and the composite term is pronounced Sangye. We say Sangye Chodong. Yeah, Sangye. This means to be awakened or cleansed is what Sang means, and Ye means to blossom or flourish. I love that. So it's a cleansing, but then there's this blossoming and flourishing. Likewise, the Sanskrit term for enlightenment, Bodhi, is translated into Tibetan as Jangchub, where, again, both meanings of the term are brought into this single composite, this cleansing and blossoming. So that's how he talks about the Buddha there. Also, this is a bit of a leap here, but it seems so important to say this. The direct realization, this is a quote by Khensur Jampa Tekchok. The direct realization of emptiness is known as the actual refuge. So I'm going to say it again. The direct realization of emptiness. This is the Buddha mind that understands reality. This is the actual refuge because it completely eliminates the root of cyclic existence, the self-grasping ignorance. When the foundation of cyclic existence has been destroyed, everything that depends on that foundation, the afflictions and the karma, also crumble. So this is Khensur Jampa Tekchok talking about the meaning of the Buddha as the direct realization of emptiness. It's quite beautiful. And then I can't remember where I found this, but I wrote it down because I thought, wow, it's going to take a while to get to the direct realization of emptiness. And then I ran onto this by Lama Yeshe, and he said, perceiving emptiness does not require some special mental state. he's so encouraging. He just like scolds, the mind that starts going, oh, this is so hard. I don't think I can do it. I don't think I have the wherewithal. He's saying, oh, you do. It just needs to get uncovered. So with the guidance of our teachers, Buddha and Dharma, we can do this. Okay, so that's a closer look at the Buddha. We'll take a closer look at the Dharma now. One of the shortest ways to refer to the Dharma is the truth. It's the truth. His Holiness refers to it as that which holds or protects. Dharma is the wisdom that understands deeply and clearly all that is. What is it holding and protecting us from is again this ignorance, the afflictions, the obscurations. The Dharma is the result of the Buddha's awakening. It's what he taught once he reached enlightenment. That's what Geshe Sopa, that was the phrase he was using. And to paraphrase one spiritual teacher I ran into, not really a Buddhist, but I loved this so much what he said that I thought, oh, this is what it feels like to me. He said, sometimes in spiritual search we find a love that has never broken trust with us. And I loved that so much. I thought he was a Unitarian minister talking just broadly about spiritual, what we're looking for. And I thought, that's what the Dharma is to me. It's a love that never breaks trust with me, never breaks trust with anybody. Okay, let's see. As usual, we all make too much to say, so but I'll get through the Sangha and then we'll talk through a few other things. I think I've said this, but I'm going to say it again in case, just to make it really clear. The Dharma has two aspects. It's the realizations of the path, especially the wisdom realizing reality, and it's the cessations of all suffering from these realizations. So these are the two aspects of the Dharma. I'm going to repeat them. The realizations of the path, especially the wisdom realizing reality. And number two, the cessations of all suffering based on those realizations. Okay, now we'll turn to the Sangha. The Arya Sangha are those who have realized reality as it is, and they inspire us. So they have direct realization of emptiness. We get confused about this, and Venerable has been clarifying it for us because this term gets used very loosely in the US now. We use Sangha. In fact, I've heard so many people come to our Sangha and they mean come to our place where, a bunch of us are going to practice together. And it really seems it's referring to spiritual friends. And I was reading Geshe Sopa about this, and he said that's okay to refer to it in that way. But traditionally, the meaning of the Sangha is those who have realized emptiness of inherent existence and have realized reality. So we want to be clear. It's all right to use it saying, come into my Sangha, but you may be causing some confusion unless you tell people this traditional use of it is those who've realized reality as it is. It can also refer traditionally to communities of fully ordained monastics who are practicing to have these realizations. So it can be your lay practice group, your Dharma center, this is my Sangha. It can be monastics who are practicing to have these realizations. And it can be the Arya Sangha, those who have realized reality as it is. I think I'm going to skip the analogy of the doctor, medicine, and nurses, but maybe I'll just say it. You can read about it. The Buddha's the doctor, the medicine is the Dharma, and the nurses are the Sangha. And we're the patients who are very, very sick. Okay, so I want to move on to just a few more things about really grappling with refuge and taking it deeply, and then I want to say something about how to move forward on it if you haven't done it and you want to actually take refuge, what to study and how to ask for it. Geshe Sopa talks about refuge as the gateway to the path to complete awakening. So it's the gateway. This is what defines us as Buddhists. Many of the things we study as Buddhists, compassion, loving kindness, are in other religions and other philosophies. But when we take refuge, this is what defines us as, when we take refuge in the three jewels, this is what defines us as a Buddhist. It opens our hearts to receive teachings, so this taking of refuge signs us up to study this well-defined path to liberation with reliable guides. Lama Yeshe again. Buddhist refuge is a process of turning inward. It's very interesting, inward. And it begins with our discovery of our own unlimited potential as human beings. This discovery generates tremendous zeal for the development of our inborn wisdom energy. Complete, perfect wisdom is Buddhahood. Perhaps the word Buddha conjures up for you remote and rather oriental image, but it's just a word, and it means a totally opened mind, as again this reference to opened lotus, this blossoming lotus. When we finally realize our potential and arrive at this total openness of mind, we become Buddhas. So let's just take a moment and think, if we had nowhere to go for refuge, if we understood this danger of our deaths, of our constant suffering, and we didn't have a place to go, how fearful that would be. How desolate, really. And think again for a moment how our taking refuge helps others. You know, I think over this 18 years of trying to practice and making some headway, and thinking how much that's really helped my family, my friends, the community here, my own mind, and probably in a certain way anyone I come in contact with. So, on a practical level, if we think about doing this and we haven't yet, or we have even, we can continue to study, continue to practice and deepen what it means to us. If you're out there and you want to set up and take refuge, you think of requesting it from a qualified spiritual guide formally. And usually refuge is taken along with some of the 5 precepts, at least the lay precepts, which are not to kill, not to steal, not to lie, not to engage in unwise sexual behavior, and not to use intoxicants. Some people take one of those when they take refuge, some take all 5. Sometimes people take them in steps. So to get there, you need to study about refuge, really read and meditate, do the prayers that, and think a lot about it. And these precepts and refuge really do bring happiness and contentment. They really help reduce trauma and drama, as we call it. The more we follow our ethics, the more we follow the blueprint of our teachers, the less drama we create. And then we have a lot of energy to put towards spiritual practice, because we're not trying to make up for the last affair we had, or the last time we got drunk and said something really mean, or any of all those things, It's just incredible relief. You can write to the office here for a copy of this refuge and precept preparation that Venerable Chidren has put together, and I'm happy to send you that. Also, please, if you don't have it, get this Pearl of Wisdom book, because in the back it has these wonderful guidelines that if we had time I was going to go through them. Once you take refuge, there are these guidelines for how you keep them and how you think, the kind of mind you think. So, and look at that. Okay, so it's 7 o'clock and I want to say just a few more things. So we might go to 7:05. So when the Buddha died, he told his disciples, this is one of the last things he said, be a light unto yourselves. Isn't that beautiful? Be a light unto yourself. So this is how the Buddha, I think, was saying, how I get this is, you take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and then your own inner inner Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha we're going to become lights up, and this is a part of what we rely on also. And Venerable talks about this. We take refuge not only in some kind of outer Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, but the inner Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha that we will become, because we have this Buddha nature in us already. So I think that's what the Buddha was pointing at when he said that. He also was trying to cut them from the attachment to him, like if he's gone, there's no path, and of course that's not true. So he's pointing that we're responsible for transforming our own confusion, aversion, and clinging, and responsible for our liberation and the liberation of others. So we make this effort with as much joy as we can fake until we can really feel it. And it's coming. Yeah, it comes. It does. Lama Yeshe gives us these guidelines. Watch your mind. Ask, what's my body, speech, and mind doing now? Ask it over and over. Am I using it to end suffering? What's rising up here? So learn the antidotes and be vigilant. Not fearful, not that stupid fear, but brave and vigilant with this common sense fear that is about the danger we're in. So I just wanted to give one more example. I've been working a lot on jealousy, and I just feel like I've been really trying to focus on it. So I can now feel it when it's going to start. And most of the time, sometimes it hijacks me. I can feel it when it's going to start. And I just, especially to whoever it's attaching to, I just start saying a mantra. May you be well, may you be happy, may you be well, may you be happy, may you be well, may you be happy. And it just starts going away. It's just like, oh, that's so cool. Mm-hmm. So this works. Also, when we did the Vajrasattva retreat here, many years ago, I'm looking at Venerable Semke, the first one we did here. Oh gosh, that was amazing. It was 04 and 05. And you know, you're sitting there for 3 months and you're dragging up all the mud and muck in your mind, and you're laying it out in front of Vajrasattva and pouring all the light down, and it's such an incredibly wonderful practice. I was having a horrible day. I was like, I either got to run out of here or hurt somebody, or I was way over the edge. It was like, ah. And I didn't know what to do with myself, and I walked into the downstairs office, and there was just a newsletter there, and I picked it up and I thought, okay, this is Lama Zopa saying something to someone, so I'll just read. You know, I can at least sit here and read something. And by the end of the article, I was in tears, because what Lama Zopa said to someone who, it was advice, and it was someone who was having a very, very hard time. It was me, and in that moment. And he said, ultimately, you take refuge in your own good heart. Your own good heart. And I just sat down and cried. Take refuge in my own good heart. And what it caught against was I was getting lost in, I'm bad, you know, looking at all these things I've done. How am I ever gonna, you know, get through this? And he said, no, you take refuge over and over in your own good heart, your own Buddha nature. You have the potential for all the qualities right there in your own heart. It's not somewhere else, not far away. So I want to end with just this one quote. It's not actually by a Buddhist, but it so ties in, and I think it's what our teachers are doing. He says, I wish I could show you, when you're lonely or in the darkness, the astonishing light of your own being. And that's what they're doing. That's what the Three Jewels are doing, showing us the astonishing light of our own being. That was by Hafiz, who I think is, I don't know, in Rumi, in the tradition of Rumi, so it's Sufi. Yeah, absolutely beautiful. Okay, well, there was more, but we'll save it for the next time. And thank you so much. And let's continue to take refuge in these wonderful, reliable objects, and they're non-objects, and in our own good hearts. Okay? I would dedicate.